Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagan Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagan Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutaya Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Hare Krishna Shri Shri Jagannath Shri Baldev Shrimati Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. So thank you Mataji for arranging this wonderful program like last year, and so beautiful deities, and of course very attractive, but that's natural.
And dress has been brought by Mataji from Vrindavan.
Hari Bol! Will you give your hand for something? What about Vinod Bansal?
Just say hi.
Oh! Hari Bol! This cross communication going on here. So today, as Mataji said, I'd like to talk about some of the pastimes of Lord Jagannath. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! In case you have noticed, I'm kind of trying to start the discussion. So actually, I was in Jagannath Puri just a few months ago in October, and had an opportunity, of course, to go to the temple. And I was given, well, if you can call it tour of the temple by a very knowledgeable Panda. And so he told me a few things about the temple and about what goes on that I'd like to share with you before I get into the pastimes of Lord Jagannath, if that's okay. So the first thing he told me about was how the bhoga is prepared for Lord Jagannath. So anybody wants to guess how many stoves they might have? Just wild guess. 100, that's one guess. 11, that's another guess. 500 is another guess. 901. Anybody for 794? 794 1, 794 2. Yeah, 794. Very good, thank you. So 794 stoves. And each one of those stoves, they have 9 pots, earthen pots, one on top of each other, and they cook them simultaneously. Guess which pot is cooked first?
The top.
The top one. The top one is cooked first, and then comes. Yeah, how is right? This is Lord Jagannath's amazing pastimes. So then this is a separate room called the cooking room, and then they have a bhoga room where they collect everything. And then there's a long corridor that comes to the temple. So they have these people with yokes, very strong people, because they put a whole bunch of pots on either side of the yoke and then they carry them. And of course you're not allowed to watch as they're being carried for offering. But there's a pastime associated with that about 500 years ago. There's a temple, as you might know, in Jagannath Puri called Gambhira Temple. Who's the famous person who lived there? Lord Chaitanya. Yeah, Mahaprabhu, yes. Lord Chaitanya used to live there. So they have a Radha Krishna deity there. Those deities actually used to be in the Jagannath Puri temple. So one time, Lord Jagannath came to the dream of the Pujari, the head Pujari. and said, from now on, you should move the deities of Radha and Krishna from there and take them somewhere else. And the Pujari was amazed. He said, why would Lord Jagannath want the deities of Radha and Krishna removed from the temple? So he said, my dear Lord, I do whatever you want, but I don't understand. There must be a reason. He said, yes, there's a very good reason. All the bhoga passes through the room where the deities are, and they eat it before I get a chance to eat it. So I'm here hungry. So please move them. So they were moved to this temple, the Gambhira temple. So you can actually still see those deities. Actually, there's a very similar pastime from Rajapur Jagannath ji. Anybody has been to Rajapur? Yeah, Mayapur? Okay, one person, two people. Okay. So there they have deities of Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, of course, but they also have deities of Shaligram. So one time Lord Jagannath came to the dream of the head pujari and said, from now on, you should offer 2 trays. You only offer 1 tray. So he said, why? What's the problem? Is 1 tray not enough? He said, well, what's happening is that by the time you put the tray in front of us, and before you have finished chanting the mantras, the Shaligram eats everything. So I'm not getting anything again. This area where there are 3 platforms which look like tree trunks that have been chopped off only about 2 or 3 feet high. So I asked them, what's that? He said, that's where they bring those tree trunks to carve the deities of Lord Jagannath, Lord Baldev and Subhadra. Actually, there's a question. How many deities are there on Jagannath altar? How many deities?
4.
5.
Very good. Sorry? Yes, 4.
Sudarshan.
That's right. Sudarshan Chakra is the 4th deity. Yeah. So 4 deities are carved. Now, what happens is, as you know, that just before Rath Yatra, we have a 15-day period. It's called, what's that 15-day period called? Where you cannot take darshan.
They have sickness.
Anavasar, yeah. It's called Anavasar. Avasar means opportunity. Anavasar means you have no opportunity to see the Lord. And the story is that the Lord has gone to take bath in the ocean and he catches cold and therefore he's home being tended to by the queens and therefore he's not available to anybody else to visit. It is said also that it's a special pastime of Lord Krishna actually to soften up his queens because he says, we got 15 days of uninterrupted association, now please let me go to Vrindavan. So that's this kind of game he plays with his queens. Anyway, so those 15 days are used to color coat the deities and it's called Navkalevar, this new body basically. So they color them right and then at the end of 15 days you are able to see the deities. So these people who are carving the deities every 12 years or so, they have only 14 days to start and finish the deities. Because at the end of 14 days, there will be transfer, exchange of the deities. So I'll talk about how that happens. So they make a tent and they have few very skilled people who carve and they have, like I say, only 14 days to carve, color and everything to do that. So, excuse me. So when that's done, and the time comes to exchange the deities, these new deities are taken to the altar, where actually there's an altar and across there's a small alleyway and there's another altar, or platform I should say. On this platform the new deities are put. So now visualize old deities here, the new deities here. And then they choose or pick a Brahmin who's qualified to do the transfer. Because remember, these are installed deities. In Hindi it's called Prana Pratishtha, which means they are live. So he's a very qualified person is chosen. Actually, usually it's an old Brahmin who knows that after having done this, within 1 year he will leave his body. That's a given. So such a qualified person is chosen and he allows himself to be picked knowing this is the last year of my body, my service on. And so this person sits in the middle of the 2 sets of the deities and he offers his mantras. And after offering mantras, he closes his eyes and puts his hands like this. As his eyes are closed, he's chanting, meditating and chanting the mantras. He can feel something has just landed on his hands. These are their lordships. They've landed on his hand. And then he can feel that they have left his hand and they enter the bodies of the new deities. And then at the end of it, then next morning, they exchange. Now they put the old ones on this side, new ones on this side. Then they take the old ones to the same ground, but opposite where they were carved. There's another ground, slightly lower in level. And if you go there, you see 3 large circles. They are for corresponding deities, the Jagannath deities. And they are dug 21 feet deep. So these deities are somewhere, it varies from time to time, but they can be anywhere from 6 to 10 feet tall. It's not, every time it's not the same height. So they're taken and they're buried in that ground, and then you put the dirt and everything, and then you wait for another 12 years. But the amazing thing is that at the end of the 12 years, when they dig it again, deities are gone. There's no wood shavings, nothing. It's an empty hole. And this is repeated every 12 years or so. They're just gone. Nobody knows where they go, what happens. But every time they open it, it's simply a hole where they bury the deities. So that goes on. And of course, the rest of the pastimes go on at the temple. So associated with that is another pastime where one time Narad Muni, as you know, he's allowed to go anywhere. So one time he had an opportunity to serve Mother Lakshmi very nicely. So she was very pleased. She said, son, ask for anything you want. He said, Mother, I have a desire, I'm going to ask you, but you cannot say no, you already said you want to give me something. She said, yes, of course. My dear son, just ask. And he said, I would like to have some Mahaprasadam from the plate of Lord Narayana next time you give him bhog. And suddenly she became very serious. She says, oh, I'm in trouble. And he says, you can't back off, you just promised me. She says, yeah, but the problem is that Lord Narayana told me very recently he does not want anybody to be given his remnants. What to do? So she says, Mother Lakshmi, this is your problem now. She said, okay. So she went to Lord Narayan, served him very nicely, and was kind of sitting there looking sad. Of course, Lord Narayan knows right away that something is not quite right. So he says, what's the matter? So she told him what the problem was. He said, okay, because you have promised and because this is Narad Muni, fine, but this time only, this is it. She said, okay, that's fine. So she was very happy. She brought the plate, a different plate, of course, with the remnants, gave it to Narad Muni. He was very happy and he ate. He was so ecstatic. He was dancing away, and throughout the universes he was dancing and trembling. So Mother Parvati noticed that, and she said, "My dear Lord Shivan, what's going on? What's happening?" So he said, "I just got Mahaprasadam of Lord Narayan, so I'm happy." She said, "Great, should be happy. Something for me too." And he said, "I'm sorry, the last morsel of grain was in this nail. I sucked that nail, I got it. There's nothing left." Now she's really angry. So now she's, fire coming out of her body, and it looks like everything below is going to be burnt. So the demigods would run to Lord Narayana and say, "Please do something." So Lord Narayana appears and says, "What's the matter?" So she said, "Well, these two got Mahaprasadam, I didn't get it." So he said, "Okay, I'll give it to you. Then don't worry, don't get angry. So calm down." She said, "Not only that I want it, now I wanted all my children, us, getting prasadam also." That's how merciful she is. So he said, "Oh, okay, I'll tell you what. When I appear as Lord Jagannath, I will make sure that it does not become Mahaprasadam until it has been offered to you first. And then there will be no qualification. Shudra or Chandala or whatever, anybody and everybody is allowed to have Mahaprasadam." So there is a temple of Bimla Devi just behind the temple. That's Mother Parvati. So it's always offered to her after the Lord has eaten it, before it's distributed. And as you know, there's no restriction on the Jagannath Prasad, the rice that we all bring is distributed very freely to anybody and everybody without any qualifications required. So that's Lord Narayan, basically fulfilling his promise. So Lord Jagannath, as you know, is Krishna, and I'm sure everybody knows the story of how Lord Jagannath got this form. So even though in this form he's full of ecstasy and is, basically meditating upon himself, but his intrinsic nature doesn't change. Our intrinsic nature by definition doesn't change for anybody. So his intrinsic nature is, he is the supreme enjoyer, which means he likes to joke around. Also, his intrinsic nature is to steal. That's why he's called Hari. So he has to steal. So I'll tell you some pastimes that kind of talk about both those things. So there was a devotee, his name was Raghudas. He actually was a devotee of Lord Ramchandra. So whenever he saw the deities of Lord Jagannath, Lord Baldev and Subhadra, in his mind he would see Lord Ramchandra, Lord Lakshmana and Mother Sita. And one day he made a garland with nice flowers, but for the string he used the bark of a banana tree. And he gave to the head pujari to offer to the Lord. And pujari was fine doing that, but just before he was about to offer, he noticed that the string is not a string of thread, it's bark of banana tree. And he said, that's not allowed, that's not considered pure. So he returned it to the devotee, Raghudas, and said, sorry, you can't offer it. Of course, Raghudas was totally devastated. Like, I made with so much love, and the Lord has rejected it. That means I must be really fallen. He went home and he was sitting there crying. At night, Lord Jagannath appeared in the dream of the head pujari and said, what have you done? He said, my dear Lord, what? He says, you did not offer me that garland for my pure devotee. He's sitting home crying, so you better go and get the garland. So the devotee goes running to the house of Raghudas and apologizes and brings the garland and puts it on. And of course, Raghudas very happy, he's dancing in ecstasy. My love to serve me. And I love to serve my devotee. So I was not going to give up this opportunity to serve my devotee. Yes, you're right, I could have got you okay right away. But no, I wanted to have this opportunity. Also, he had little bit of karmas left. So I wanted to make sure they got burned so you won't have to worry about it. So then Raghudas said, okay, my dear Lord, then you can't leave now, you have to stay here. So the Lord said, I can't stay here, but I promise I'll come every day. So every day the Lord will go as the little boy, and they play games, ball and all those kind of things. Every day they'll play. And they became very famous that the Lord is playing with this devotee. So this went on for a while. And one day, the Lord again, in the form of a boy, said, you know, Raghudas, I feel like eating jackfruit. Everybody knows jackfruit, kathal. So he said, okay, all I have to do is tell the king, he knows you, of course, and he knows me too, and he'll get you the best jackfruit. He said, you don't understand. I need to steal it. So come with me, we'll steal it from the garden of the king. We'll go find the best tree and the best jackfruit on that tree, and we'll steal it. He said, my dear Lord, king knows us very well. We don't have to. All I have to do is tell him to send one, he'll send the best possible jackfruit to you for your enjoyment. It's all yours, there's no problem. And the Lord said, have you forgotten my pastimes as Krishna? Yashoda Maya, my mother, had 900,000 cows. She had more butter than I would ever want to eat. But I didn't eat that, I want to steal. Because I enjoy stealing. And I enjoy the pleasure my devotees get from my stealing from their house so they can complain about it. So that's what I want to do. So he said, okay, whatever you will. So at night, they went to the jackfruit garden and there was a fence, so they jumped the fence. They found the tree with the best jackfruits and the Lord said to Raghudas, okay, you climb up. So he says, okay, whatever you say. So he climbed up, found the best jackfruit, plucked it. He says, okay, Jagannath, you ready to catch it? He says, yeah, throw it, I'll catch it. Throw it. There's no Jagannath. It just falls on the ground. Big sound, blows completely up, little pieces. And like at night, you can imagine in the middle of the night, there's no other sound. So there's a huge sound coming out of this thing exploding. And sure enough, the gardener comes running. What's going on? Of course, he did not see Jagannath, he just disappeared. And he doesn't see anybody. He looks up, there's Raghudas sitting there on the tree. He says, it's you, okay. All right. And Raghudas is totally embarrassed, he doesn't know what to say. And so he doesn't say anything, he's sitting there. And the gardener says, okay, you stay there. And he goes to the palace, tells the king, Raghudas is doing this. And he's saying, Jagannath told him to do this. So the king says, okay, I got to see this. So king comes there and says, Ramadas, come down. So Ramadas coming down, he's trembling, kind of, what the king is going to do. So king says, what gives? What's happening? He said, well, Jagannath told me to come here. He said he has to steal it. He convinced me that stealing is the right thing to do. And he told me to climb up the tree, and he told me he'll catch it. But he didn't catch it, just disappeared. So the king said, okay, I know how he works. He said, how many jackfruits did he? So he sent hundreds of jackfruits to the temple and says, whatever you want. So that's one pastime after Lord, playing jokes and stealing things. There was another really nice devotee. He was called Gita Pandit. He was known as Gita Pandit because he was always reading Gita. But that's all he would do. He wouldn't go to beg for alms. He didn't have any job. He had 2 children. So unless somebody came to his house and gave something, he wouldn't bother. So there were many times when there was nothing in the house to eat. And his wife will say, you got to worry about the children, if not about me. Go get something. And he will always say, Krishna will provide, don't worry. So he would get mad, so he'll open Gita, 9:22, Ananyashantyanto mam yena paripaste. Right? Tesham nitya bhuktanam yog shemam bahamyam. He just showed them. So one day, after 3 or 4 days of children being really hungry, and I guess it was summertime, it was very hot, she was getting really annoyed. So as soon as he showed her this verse, she took a pen which was red in color and crossed the verse off. I've had enough of this verse. Your Krishna is not coming, my children are hungry, and there's nothing in the house. And she went downstairs, stomping. So he said, okay, I know she's upset. She said, okay, I'm going to take a bath in the river. Kind of avoid the situation. So he went away. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. So she opened, thinking that my husband has come back very quickly today. She opened the door. There were 2 boys standing outside with sacks of stuff on their backs. So she said, yes. And they said, well, somebody has sent all this stuff for your husband. So please let us know where we can put it. And she said, come on, bring it inside. She showed the storeroom and they put everything. That was all the food stuff. So she said, why don't you stay? You're so beautiful looking boys. Let me make some hoga and you can have some prasadam before you go. So the black boy said, no, my tongue has been cut. So I can't eat anything. And they left. Sometime later, Gita Pandit came back. And he saw that his wife was busy cooking all this wonderful food stuff. And he said, when I left, hardly an hour ago, there was nothing in the house. Now the storeroom is full and you're cooking all these things. What happened? So she told him about these 2 boys who came and who brought everything. So he said, well, how come you did not ask them to stay and have some prasadam? She said, well, I did. But one of the boys said that his tongue had been cut, so he didn't want to eat. So Gita Pandit knew right away what has happened. She said, next day, let's go to the Jagannath temple to do the darshan. So they go there, and they go pretty close, and they notice there are 3 red dots on the lips of Lord Jagannath. So pen markings were there. So this particular verse is very, very meaningful verse, and of course the Lord Jagannath is proving that is a wonderful verse for us, all of us to remember and realize. Realizing is very, very important. Ananyaschintyanto mam yena paripaste. Tesham nitya bhaktanam yog shemam bahamyam. Because people say that, oh, Lord Krishna will provide, Lord Krishna will take care of it. But a lot of people tell me, we say it, but we don't believe it. But, we got to believe this. He's there. He's promising it himself. So one other story about a tailor. Amazing tailor, like famous in the whole community about how great a job he did with his tailoring. So the king at that time, he had received a gift of very nice cloth, basically embroidered with diamonds and rubies and all those kind of things. So he wanted to get a couple of pillows made for himself. So he said, here's the best tailor, I'll give it to him. And so he sent his soldiers with that cloth and said, tell him to make 2 pillows for me. So tailor said, that's fine, okay, I'll do it. As he was doing it, it was one day before Rath Yatra. So in his mind, he started meditating on the Rath Yatra. So I don't know, has anybody been there during Rath Yatra or on the day of Rath Yatra? Jagannath Puri? Yeah. Only Manasubhuti. So what happens is, the manner in which they bring the deities from the altar to the chariot. You may have seen the pictures of the chariot, they're very high. And there's fair distance between the temple and the street where the chariots are. So these deities are very heavy. So they have special ropes, and there's a very strong pandas who bring them one step at a time, carrying them on the shoulders, and with the rope, they pull them forward. And to avoid the impact of the road for the Lord's deities, they have these mattresses they put. And they take one step, put them down because it's so heavy. And they take one step and put them down. And a lot of times these mattresses burst as they're doing this. So this tailor started meditating upon that pastime. And he saw these mattresses bursting. And he was saying in his mind that maybe I should offer this pillow. This is too nice for the king to use. And he's holding one pillow in his hand saying, maybe I should offer this pillow to Lord Jagannath so that, he will not have to step on the street. And as he was meditating, he basically got into trance. And when he woke up, there was only one pillow in the house. The second pillow had disappeared. Now he was really worried what happened. And he said, in his heart he knew what has happened. But I guess he did not want to accept that Lord will take something from me, kind of feeling. But he said, okay, whatever. And as he was thinking about this, the soldiers came and said, okay, the king is looking for his pillows. He says, okay, so he went with one pillow to the king's place and in front of the king, and he handed him one pillow. So the king looks at it, says, very nice job, very good, where's the other pillow? And he said, well, Lord Jagannath took it. So the king said, I know who Lord Jagannath is, but don't give me this. Where's the pillow? But he's thinking like the rubies and the diamonds, this guy has taken them away. So he said, no, seriously? He came and he took it away. And he said, I've seen the deities of Lord Jagannath, he does not even have hands, so he's not going to be able to take it. What are you talking about? He says, no, really, that's what happened. So the king got really angry and said, throw him in jail. So throw him in jail. So the tailor is in the jail, and he's chanting Lord Jagannath's name, is meditating upon him. And he falls asleep. In his sleep, the Lord appears. I said, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. So he wakes up, the office of businesses, and the Lord touches him. Oh, I forgot to mention that the tailor was hunchback. So as soon as the Lord touched him, the shackles were open, just like Vasudev's shackles, they were open. And he became straight body as opposed to hunchback. Became a very handsome young man. And the Lord said, don't worry, I'll protect you. The Lord disappeared and appeared in the dream of the king. And says, how dare you throw my devotee in jail? How dare you not believe what my devotee was telling you, that I took the pillow? I'm telling you I took the pillow. You will never do this again, and just by the way, you're going to be punished for the way you have treated my devotee. Took his whip out and started whipping him on the back. Now, the king is screaming, and he's thinking he's dreaming. So he's screaming in his dreams, oh, please leave me, please save me, all those kind of things. Finally, the Lord stops, disappears, king wakes up. He says, oh, that was a nightmare. Then he touches his back, it's all swollen, and wilt marks there, and blood coming out. He says, oh my God, looks like the Lord really was here, and he whipped me. So right away, he sent his soldiers to, he goes himself to the prison. And he enters the room, he says, this guy's standing, and I sent him an old hunchback in the prison room. This young, handsome guy standing here, and there's no shackles. So he offered his obeisances and said, I'm really, really sorry. This will never happen again. And let him go. So those are things, some of the pastimes. I guess out of time. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
And now we will have PJ Krishnadas from UK and Vrindavan to sing the final slot for Kirtan.
And then Sachidanand Prabhu will do